All right, guys, welcome to today's guest episode of the Men Made for More podcast. Joined with a good friend of mine, special guest, Dakota Ennis. Dakota, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thanks for being on here today.
Dave, thanks for having me, man. I've been listening to the show for a while. I'm super excited that you had me on here, man.
I know we were in talks for a little bit for finding the time, and it got, we were talking maybe a month ago. So I'm glad we finally got to lock in this date and get a time where our schedules can align. So, man, I'm excited for it. I know it's going to be a good one coming today with some of the things you have going on. And let's just help listeners out by, giving just a brief overview of your background, maybe not the whole life story, but, a few minutes of like where, how you're raised, what you're up to now in business and the new launch you have, and then kind of what stage you're at this point in life.
Totally. Yeah. So I grew up in Iowa. I was the oldest of five kids. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but yeah, grew up in Iowa, oldest of five, had two wonderful parents, normal Christian upbringing, I guess you would say. I've always been involved in church, and when I was younger, football was my big thing, right? So always wanted to play college football, and so that's kind of what I transitioned into. When I was younger, I played football at Evangel University down in Springfield, Missouri. And that led into, what I thought was going to be a police officer, career. I was studying criminal justice. I took a turn, ended up being a firefighter for 4 years, which is a big part of my story and my growth. So yeah, I was a firefighter for 4 years. And man, that's really where I'd say I started to develop, personally and started to grow and had the ideas to I wanted to own my own business, and started reading those self-help books. I think I was 21 years old, and I was like, I want to own a business, but I'm just not sure what in yet. And the first step was growing yourself, right? So really invested in myself and started growing, and I still do, but I would say that's really where it really started. Coming present day, 25 now, married, just had my first baby girl. She's 7 months old, and I'm just super thankful for where I'm at. I work a full-time job, so I'm a commercial security consultant by day. And just 2 weeks ago, we launched Comfort Tactical, which is our tactical apparel brand. And yeah, just super blessed and thankful to be on the podcast today, man.
Yeah, that's great, man. It's going to be a nice transition to what we want to talk about, because I'm curious because, I come from Midwest family too, like solid, really solid upbringing and those things too. But entrepreneurship wasn't necessarily something that was in our family. You come from a family of a lot of teachers, and it sounds like same thing, where you get into something like firefighting. And I don't know for sure. You can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but firefighting doesn't seem like, it's not like that's the natural step to an entrepreneur journey. Like firefighting seems very much like, you're in it, and it's a tough thing to get into, but you want to stay in that. And I don't know, maybe more guys than I know are branching off into their own business things with that. But was there a flip in your mind that, caused you, when you say around that 2021 mark, to start reading those self-help books, being like, hey, this is something I want to do? Like, was it, hey, I have this need I can fill? Or is it just like, hey, I know I know this is something that's in my future, something I was made for? How did that kind of play out for you?
So funny you ask, because I'm asked that question all the time. So I appreciate you asking it. And I say that because a lot of people are like, you are a firefighter. A lot of people want to be firefighters, even when they're 30, 40, 50, like you have this pension and you have all these great benefits, and like, why would you ever leave that? You were so set up. And I was, but what I always wanted for my life, and what I wanted to do financially, wasn't at the fire department. That was one reason. Couple other reasons, without getting into the details, another reason is that about 80% of the fire department is EMS, right? So you're, basically a glorified EMT. You're running all of the heart attacks, the strokes, things like that. And love the fire side, but the EMS side wasn't really for me. But with that being said, the biggest piece was probably financial. I looked at where I would be in 30 years, making $70,000-$80,000 a year, as a chief. And I'm just like, I can see my whole pay structure out in front of me, and there's just limits. I just felt the glass ceiling. and just decided that this isn't where I wanted to be. And I know that other firefighters make more depending on the area, but in the Midwest, I mean,
Mhm.
$80,000 is pretty good salary, but yeah, I just felt like I was made for more.
Yeah, love it. Good plug there. And
Yeah.
yeah, I felt the same thing too with people think finish our degree was in my wife and I in doctorate of physical therapy, and it's like, oh, like doctor, you get this huge big salary when you come out and you're like making these big bucks, and it's like realistically, no, we're pretty middle considering how much we pay into schooling, like pretty middle of the road. And same thing, there's very much a glass ceiling on there. And when you start to look at it, you're like, I don't want to work 30 years and make a 2% raise year over year to get to the point where it's still not to the lifestyle that we want to be living. So I can totally relate with that, and I think a lot of people listening can relate to that. But identifying that and doing something about it are two totally different things. So what was that like of actually maybe conversations you had with your wife, with friends? Like was your wife supportive? Because I know a lot of resistance for people is like family can be resistant to it when you have this good thing, this stable, safe thing set up. Did you meet any resistance, or how did you shift from, hey, I see this isn't where I want to go, and actually taking action on it?
Yeah. So the road I took, I believe it was the correct road. It wasn't exactly like quitting cold turkey. Like I was like,
Hmm.
I'm going to leave the fire department. I think Alex Miller talked a little bit about this in your last podcast that I listened to, where you just either cut it off or, you kind of maintain something.
Hmm.
And kind of the transition for me was, in a lot of the books that I was reading that I mentioned before, um, a lot of them started in sales. A lot of people that ran big businesses or did really well in business, they started in sales at some point, and there was a common theme, and I noticed that as I would read books. And so I was like, man, I don't know anything about sales. I'm going to jump into a sales job just to learn. Like I was like, it's not
Hmm.
really about the money. So one thing led to the next. I went through a bunch of sales training, and I had a entry level sales job while I was at the fire department. So I'd actually go to the fire department for 2 days and then sales for 4 days. And I did that for about a year and a half. um, and when I finally decided that like I was going to transition out of the fire department, I actually didn't go right into Comfort Tactical. I went into a higher ticket sales job because now I have the skill. Now we might as well make a foundation of money, right? Where
Hmm.
that will allow me to launch my business. So that's kind of in the phase that I'm in right now. And it has allowed me to launch the business. And I'll probably continue, to work my day job.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just kind of the foundation was sales transitioning into launching, if
Hmm.
that answered your question.
Yeah, it definitely did. And I like you clearing that up, because a lot of people, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, but it's like it doesn't have to be that burn the boats type mentality. There's plenty of ways to do it. Where if you have this dream, it's like, hey, let's test the waters a little bit and do that. But I know there's a lot that goes into a day job on its own. Takes a lot of energy, a lot of time. And then can you talk through like what went into the Comfort Tactical launch? Like how much time, how much energy, and maybe how did you manage some of your time to get, because it's a lot of people want it. They like this idea of getting the side business off the ground, but like that takes some really good time management strategies and those things too. So can you speak on either one of those?
Yeah, I can kind of speak on like how it started and kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, that'd be great.
When we started, I would say that there wasn't even. I mean, you could always keep yourself busy, but I don't know that there was enough work because what I do in the apparel industry, there's a lot of communicating and waiting on other people to get, information back from manufacturers and getting fabric samples. And like, so I would say, like, I don't even know that I would have enough work for a full
Mm,
time job to start out with. So it actually paired really well with what I was doing, because I was working, late in the evening, early in the morning type of thing to start out, because let's see, we started last January. So it's been about a year that we've been working on Comfort Tactical leading up to this. And just so anybody knows, Comfort Tactical, we're a tactical apparel brand, where we made one of the first pair of concealed carry sweatpants. So we actually took sweatpants, reinforced the waistband, added belt loops so that you could actually carry your firearm I'm not sure what the rules are in California. Maybe you can't even do that. I'm not sure.
Well,
I'd have to look it up.
good thing people listen all over the country. California is not the
Oh,
not the best state for that,
nice.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, just with that being said, a little background. So I'm working with manufacturers. I'm doing all this stuff. So really, as far as the time management piece, I would say I did the best I could without a lot of knowledge on how to manage my time. I was just, you know, doing what a lot of people do if they're starting a business. I work during the day, and then the evening I would just get home. I would talk to manufacturers and stuff like that, building prototypes. And up to this recent launch, I would say in in January was when things really changed, and I started to implement. I think you're familiar with Al Hammett's 4-quarter structure,
Yep. Yep.
and
Why don't you give
and
people,
how he.
yeah, give people
Yeah,
background on how you use it, can help with that.
yeah, absolutely. So I've really implemented Al's 4-quarter structure. It served me in a lot of different ways, but it boils down to having a vision and breaking it down on, okay, this is your goal. This is what you want to do. Now, how do you get there? And you get really granular. You break it down into 4 quarters of the year. Then you break it down into, um, basically on a monthly, daily, all the way down to an hourly basis, right? And how you structure your day to complete and to get to that goal, task, whatever it is. So, like as an example, my quarter one in the morning is from 5:30 to 9:30. It's my Q1. It's my personal development time. It's when I work on me. Q2 is my super focus. It's when I got a lot of the things done that require a lot of my brain power and attention. It's where, I feel that I have the most brain power in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
My Q3 is from 1:30 to 5:30. That's kind of it's my action time. It's when I'm getting the things done that don't necessarily require a lot of brain power, but require a lot of action, where I just do
Mm-hmm.
things. And then the biggest piece for me is 5:30 to 9:30, which is my Q4, my family time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm able to run my business in the morning, work my day job, and be with my family in the evening with that 4-quarter structure. Hopefully that did it justice.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, and well, we were talking before. We'll have to get Al on here for a future one for a really deep dive on it. But yeah, I use the same thing, and I have a similar structure to you, where it's 5 to 9 is the like me time of personal growth, of reading, prayer, like breath work, some of those things,
Mm.
working out, and then my most productive times in the morning too. So that 9 to 1 block super valuable for being able to just do some of that like on the business type stuff, and then 1 to 5 in the business, and then the family time at the end. So it's a powerful system. Yeah, it's a great way for those listening that need to find those extra hours in the day to to get that side business up off the ground. Like it's a good way to do that. And in that sense, were you doing it then so that like initial 5 to 9, 5:30, 9:30 block? Is that when you were doing a lot of your building Comfort Tactical?
Yeah, definitely. That's when I do it now for sure. It's what I love about the 4-quarter structure is it's always evolving and it's always
Mm-hmm.
changing. And I'm always like, how can I fit all this time in, all this stuff to do? And right now, yeah, it looks like 5:30 in the morning. I'm doing my devotionals and going to the gym and doing my workout. And really from like 6:30 to 7:30, 8 o'clock is when I'm shipping shipments, when I'm moving the needle for Comfort Tactical. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been super, super helpful, super blessed to really know that 4-quarter structure so I can implement it every day.
Yeah, that's good. That's a really good thing on time management. And as we get into launching of Comfort Tactical, what for those that are maybe looking to get into a launch, like I feel like a launch is overwhelming. I haven't done a launch like you've done it, of an apparel thing. I can imagine what goes into that. We have a lot of, I guess, mini launches going into it. We have mindset mastery challenges, we have different coaching groups we launch, we have different one-on-one pushes we have of getting working with new clients. But those are like digitally, and those are I guess on a micro scale versus launching a full new brand. So can you speak a little on what that looks like energy wise, time wise, what the process was leading up to the actual launch piece, and how it felt when you actually did get that up and launched?
Totally. Yeah. And I will say, although it's different, doesn't mean one's harder than the other. Cause I'm sure, it's really how familiar are you with these different areas. And I knew nothing about apparel. So, I didn't even know the difference between a woven and a knit. And that's like very common language within the apparel industry. And so I would just say like where it started was super new. I was like, I know the end goal. I had the vision. I was like, how do I get there? Right. I want to make these concealed carry sweatpants. Do I, starting out, we were like, do we just sew on a waistband on some existing sweatpants? Like, do we just wholesale sweatpants? And then we tried that and we were like, looks horrible. So then, we started from scratch and found out that there's actually contract manufacturers that you can hire, that you actually send all your materials. So your fabric and your elastic and all this stuff, and they actually take it to the sewers, and then they take it, to all these different places. So I would say, to kind of answer your question, a lot of work as far as like communication. You're dealing with time zones. That was new to me, calling people on the East Coast, because Pacific time, you call somebody at 5 o'clock here, they're almost going to bed over there. So it's like,
Hmm.
you've missed the mark. So I
Yeah.
would say there was a lot of patience that I had to build up in myself, just waiting on other people, like, hey, waiting on your pattern, waiting on, samples to be made, and prototyping. We went through a 2 month prototyping phase where we had just 10 people wear our sweats for 2 months. And there's really, there's other things you can do behind the scenes, but you're just waiting for feedback. Do you like
Hmm.
them? What do you like? And then when they don't like something or they do, you're making changes, right? So a lot of patience, and a lot of anticipation, I think, is kind of what, you wanted me to talk about was as we approached the launch, it was almost like, oh, wait, are we ready? Like we have all this
Yeah.
inventory, like, are we ready to launch? And the best advice I can give anybody is that you're never really going to be 100% ready. You're just going to have to ready, fire, aim type of thing,
Hmm.
and we launched and put a lot into the launch, and it was super exciting. And the launch went super well. We had really good sales just in the first week of our sweatpants and our other, merch. And but I would say, yeah, that biggest step was just launching, just getting it off the ground. We could have made
Yeah.
100 other excuses of why we needed to wait another 3 months, 4 months, but we're launched, and now we're officially, comfort tactical, and we have been for the past few weeks. So
Yeah.
uh, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. And first off, congrats on that, man. I know how much work goes into that, and especially uh, working another job and doing these other things. Like that's long hours of being able to do that. But I love the patience you had with it too. Of it's easy to get impatient, and this is always a delicate balance for entrepreneurs because it's like, there's certain things sometimes we're not acting enough. Like there's more we can be doing. There's more times we can pick up the phone and do these things, but sometimes it is like playing the long, and it's this balance of long game, short game of how to manage that. So first off, just congrats on that. I mean, a launch of any kind is a big thing. And like we were talking about a little bit before we hit record though, too, is that the 100 excuses you talk about is why a lot of people don't, don't take that first step and don't, they have this dream or they have this vision of, and whether it's filling a need of what their product or service can do, or if it's like, hey, I want to make more money so my family can live a different life than the one I grew up with. And like, whatever that vision is, letting those excuses get in the way of it, letting those excuses rob that is just one of the most hurtful things to see from my point of the people that, you can't step into that bigger thing that bigger thing in their heart that they're trying to work towards. And did those excuses ever, seriously get in the way of derailing your dream at all, or how did you manage those excuses if they did come in? How did you get past those?
Yeah, I would say that not really. I mean, there was nothing. I had the vision that I wanted to launch my own business. And I think it goes back to the fire department that I spoke about earlier. Like that's where it started. And I've been on a mission ever since,
Mm.
so there wasn't necessarily excuses. I think um, the biggest thing that can kind of hold you back is yourself. And I think
Hmm.
when I would get in my own head, like people aren't going to buy this. Nobody's actually going to wear these. Maybe you're the only one that likes those, all this negative
Hmm.
stuff that goes through your head. And you know, I just never let it hold me down. I just clear it. But I've done a lot of training to like be able to do that. You know, like it hasn't always been second nature to when you have self-limiting beliefs just to shove it off. You know, it's taken a lot of practice and a lot of time. So I'd say there's not a lot that held me up, but I would say people can do the same thing. You know, I don't know about your experience, but make sure that who's in your circle,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that they always say that the 5 people you hang out with is who you're most likely to become. And it's so true. I mean, I'm not hanging out with the same people that I was hanging out with 5 years ago.
Yep.
You know, not that I don't love those people, but where I'm at right now, you know, moving into entrepreneurship, you know, launching my own business, I'm with a lot of other people that launch businesses or own their own business. And I think that's been a huge piece to my success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good. I love bringing it back to what you talked about at the beginning too. And you started reading those books, the realization that there's so much of working on yourself, and that's what people don't realize as they go into business. It's so much of like, well, what are the skills I need to learn? How do I form these sweatpants? How do I set up a website? How do I do this and this? And it's like, sure, those are things that just need to get done. Like those are essentials to what you're doing. But at the same time, people neglect to surround themselves with the right people that are elevating their mindset and that are, you know, building up yourself to be able to respond to those things. Is not that people don't have those limiting thoughts. You have those often. I have those all the time. Like we're the first to admit those are always present, but we learn how to better deal with them. We learn which ones, you know,
Mm-hmm.
certain ones do get removed, but certain ones just have to get like tamed, if you will, of you learn how to better control those things, identify them for what they are, and then say, hey, no, like I'm not gonna associate with that thought or with that belief. So I think that's awesome. And speaking of mindset, I would love to hear, you know, see, and I know it's still fairly new, but leading up to launch, I think there's a certain mindset of like, hey, we're this new business and we're like we're about to launch. And there's something that switches though when you're live and when you're actually like, hey, like you said, we are Comfort Tactical, we are this business, we're ready to sell, ready to get out our product to the right people. What's the mindset shift that goes from like launch phase to, hey, now we had a few successful weeks, how do we start to go into that growth mode?
Yeah, totally. That's a great question. And one person that I'd love to give a bunch of credit to is my business partner, because he's helped me, you know, through this entire process. You know, I've been working with manufacturers and doing kind of that side of things, but you know, he's a software engineer, so he's really helped me behind the scenes, be a little bit more practical at times. You know, he's kind of
Mm-hmm.
the one that's like, okay, we're not going to do this in 3 days, you know, because sometimes I can, you know, I can get excited about things, be like, all right, let's launch this thing. It's like, well, we need to do it the right way. You know, so I'd say, um, that one, there's a lot of build up and a lot of excitement. Of course, in my mind, I never knew what would happen. Like this thing's either gonna take off like a rocket.
Technical difficulty. YouTube watchers, we are getting this figured out, and just hang tight for a minute. We'll get the audio all chopped up. For the video though, you might just have to skip ahead until you see two faces back on there. Let me see what we do. We lost some connection here. This is a real life podcast when you're dealing with internet stuff. Roll with the punches. Makes for a little more editing on the back end, but it's all good. Grab a drink, grab a bathroom break. We'll be back. We're back. You got me?
Man, yeah, sorry about that. I don't
It's all
know.
good.
I plugged in my phone.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully I have good audio editing skills.
Yeah, no, I was saying we'll take care of that. The video we'll just let run, but the audio we can just jump back in. So if we pick up on that
Cool.
same question, then we can we'll clip it up and we'll make it sound nice. So let's we'll kind of circle back. I don't remember exactly the question I asked, but along the lines of mindset shift from launch perspective, it's one thing. It's all this. We're gonna launch, like we're gonna have this business. We're working on this, and then actual launch date comes, and now you have Comfort Tactical. What's the mindset switch from launch phase and into, hey, we've had successful weeks now. How do we get into growth phase?
Yeah, totally. And what I was saying was there's a lot of anticipation approaching the launch. There's a lot of like, is it the right time and things like that. And I think I just mentioned that there's never a good time, like you just have to do it, take the step, take the leap of faith, launch. And where the mindset shifts is like, now it's real. Now you own a business. How do you sell to people that you don't know? How do you market to your target? There's a market for launch for. How do you reach those people? What's the best marketing way? Like how are people going to respond to your ads? And I help my business partner too, and that he has really helped me with the marketing aspect because for creativity and the cameras and things like that. So but I would say the biggest mindset is once you launch, super exciting, and then all of a sudden, oh crap, now we're here. Now what do we do? Like, well, now let's make it happen. This is when the real work, kicks in and starts, I would say.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think it's really cool you intentionally got into the sales background, because that's where a lot of entrepreneurs have this passion. They have this thing, they see this need. They're like, I can solve that. I can do that. You spend all the time doing the tactical things, if you will, of putting together the ideal apparel for people. But then it gets time to sell. Like you get that initial uptick of people who are just anticipating it. But then there's going to be a point where it's like, okay, the initial people that were all excited about the launch have bought at this point. Like, sure, they're gonna, like, if they like it, they'll be lifetime customers. But at the same time, it's like, oh boy, now we need to learn how to market and we need to learn how to sell this thing. And is that something? Do you have more of that role as your business partner? Do you guys collaborate with that in terms of how to? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs run into that same problem.
Yeah, totally. So I actually, my business partner and I got together when we were starting this thing, and we started the partnership because he's definitely got skills that I don't have, and I have skills that he doesn't have with
Mm-hmm.
sales and things like that. And so that was one of the biggest reasons that we paired so well. And so I would say he definitely takes care of a lot of the ads, a lot of the marketing, website design, and all that stuff on the back end. And then, yeah, I mean, where I'm good with sales is on the phone. We have our first trade show coming up this weekend, and that's where I feel like I'm going to be able to shine, and like
Yeah.
I'll be able to rip through our pairs because the communication skills that I built and things like that. But yeah, I would say that's where we pair really well as a team. And I guess the phase we're in right now isn't how do you market or how do you sell. It's what are the avenues and what data we can collect from the people we're selling to mimic that for future ads and marketing campaigns and things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, no, I love that. And it's it's going to be unique to the specific market, but that's where a lot of people I think get deer in the headlights when they're like, I have this great service or this great product, but like, okay, the initial people bought, and now it's like, okay, now what? How do I go find a new person? But I love having a good partnership like that is super beneficial way. But don't sleep on those sales or marketing skills, because that's the lifeblood of any kind of business is the ability to do that. And man, I'm so excited for this journey you're on and getting up to the launch and doing that. And as we kind of start to wrap up here, I kind of want to hear what other parting words for someone who's on the fence with entrepreneurship. Maybe they're not sure if it's for them, or they have this big dream and they don't want to do it. Would love to hear any advice you have, and kind of wrapped up in that advice, like how do you keep the main thing too? Because you do such a good job. I just want to applaud you for the way you like invest in your family, and I know you're strong rooted in your faith, and there's like your fitness is important to you, and some of these things. Like, how do you keep the main thing and work this full-time job and get this business off the ground? Because you got a lot of stuff going on. I think that should give encouragement to people that are looking to go a similar route as you are.
Yeah, totally. And the first thing that comes to mind, like when you say that, is have a vision, like have the goals and take the first step, right?
Mm.
That was the biggest thing for me. If I would have never, like back when I just knew I wanted to launch a business, but I wasn't sure what if I didn't start developing it developing myself 5 years ago, I would not be where I'm at today. And I think something you just said with the sales, like the sales skill is great, but all the other skills I learned in sales, the communication,
Mm.
the public speaking, the confidence, when speaking to people, like all these different things are like, I'm a different human, like before I was in sales for 4 years. And I think that you can't skip over the personal development piece is what I want to say to that. And then, I give again all my credit to the 4-quarter structure for, helping me get through. Uh, because as Alan in the King's Council, we always say like living in the world of and or has been huge for me, because I I see no like purpose in getting to this point where I run a super successful business, but I don't have anybody to share it with, you know. So having my family there every step of the way, super important for me, like from day one.
Yeah, I love that, and that's such a great place to wrap up, because I know so many people that think they have to choose the or. It's like, well, I'm going to sacrifice my family for now because I'm working this full-time job to help support them, and I'm trying to get the side hustle business off, or well, put off the side hustle business because I don't want to give up this hobby, or I'm afraid of losing family time. And it's like, you might have to adjust the timeline a little bit. Like that target might move a little bit, but the end vision, like lock that end vision in, and you'll find a path that doesn't look the way that you draw it up. That's going to get there if you keep working towards it and keep those priorities the main thing. So Dakota, man, I love that, bro. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey. I know it's going to be encouraging for any of those entrepreneurs to be listening. Where can people find Comfort Tactical, and where can they get their hands on your good swag there?
Yeah, man. You can find us, at comforttactical.com. We have a website, or, find us on Instagram. You'll find some pictures of the Comfort Tactical, the off-duty sweats and things, more information at Comfort Tactical. So at Comfort Tactical and comforttactical.com. And I just want to, man, just thank you for having me on here and letting me share with everybody. And I think what you're doing here is like so important. Like the Men Made for More podcast is so important for people to hear and grow and just take that next step, because we are truly made for more. And I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
shameless plug there, but we really are. And, there, we can do more too, like we can live in the world of and do more. And that's super important to me. So thank you for having me on here, man.
Yeah, I appreciate those words, and I agree with what you said earlier of that glass ceiling. Sometimes it's actually there in our career or something. Sometimes there's a financial cap, but I do think too often we put glass ceilings on ourselves of thinking that, well, this is what my family did. This is what I did. So this is where I'm going to have to be. But when you get around the right people, that's why I'm thankful for people like yourself and other people in my life that can pour into myself. And I know you have the same thing to help raise that perceived ceiling into some greater. So Dakota, bro, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. And I'm looking forward for this going live for our listeners.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much.